Welcome to episode 155 of the Carpe Fide podcast.
Nice to be with you in studio, brother.
Same studio, together. That's you. That was weird.
Oh, that was so nice.
Oh, and our guest is here. That was just a little Pete Buttigieg moment. Don't touch my hair. I swear I'll break your finger. Some things can't be touched.
Why are you gay?
Who says that I am gay?
Why are you gay?
Anyway.
Already with
All
it.
right,
Okay.
off the rails already. Tonight we have a guest. Come on, everybody's seen that Instagram reel.
It's a good one.
Nathan, have you seen that Instagram reel?
Yeah, of course. I made pins. I made like little "Why are you gay" pins to give to all of my friends at church.
Oh my gosh! Why do I not have a why? Why are you?
I will send you a shirt. And
DM me your mailing address. I'll send you one because I did it. I got 1,000 followers on X, and so I said the next 20 people who follow me can get a pin.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's awesome. I will.
We will do that.
We will send you a shirt too, because you're awesome. Also, this is sorry, all of us tonight. This is Nathan Weisser. He is coming to us from the group that you've all seen on the interwebs, Abolitionist Rising. Fantastic group doing great content.
It's the best group. It's an amazing group.
And that's an endorsement from our President 45.
And
7
and 46
7
and 47.
Wait.
All the presidents.
Has this been a continuous? I didn't even. Then you would just be President 45. If you were President 45, 46, and 47, you'd just be President 45, and then it would jump to 48, wouldn't it?
Wow.
I'll have to get a new math secretary.
Moving past the Trump impersonation, Nathan's on tonight for an episode we're calling "Ask an Abolitionist." Can I vote for
fill in the blank?
Ellipsis. That's what that's known in grammar.
So smart.
Thanks, buddy. Not as smart as Nathan. He's Nathan Weisser. He's Weisser than you. Nathan, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself? This is technically the second time we've had you on, and the first time that anyone's actually meeting you. So go ahead.
My name is Nathan Weisser. I am finally got my title. I'm the director of video production at Abolitionist Rising.
Oh, so spicy.
Isn't it great? I directed a documentary called A Storm Comes Rolling Down the Plain and a docu-series called Abortion-Free, which will be coming out soon and is available at abortionfree.com. No hyphen, just abortion-free. So yeah, that's me.
It's important to keep that in the right order. Not free abortion. It's abortion-free.
Abortionfree.com. And that's a play on all of the headlines saying Oklahoma is now abortion free or Idaho is now abortion free. It's all a lie. So that's
It's a nice website.
Well, you know who's in charge of like making all their cool stuff.
Yeah.
Erica Schotzenbach, not me.
Dang it. He's taking credit. He's probably not even going to hear this. Well, Eric, great job. We like the website. Well
Eric
done.
or Erica?
Erica.
Oh, Erica. Even better. You did a fantastic job.
Did you just misgender her?
Well, thankfully, in this room, we can just say, I'm sorry and move forward. I don't have to be kidding. So tonight, we're just going to try to tackle a few questions that are important. We had a very long form, I guess is the way to say it. We had a long form episode that was basically just us dialoguing back and forth, and it was not super helpful, but this is going to be really helpful tonight. Ironically, I think
was enjoyable.
It wasn't a bad time, but some things were said.
Things were
nonetheless, we actually ended up resolving, I think, off camera after we decided to finally stop recording in a much better way that would have probably even been more helpful for the episode than we did actual content.
You win some, you lose some.
So this is going to be great because now we know where to go to bring a nice resolution. So this is going to be a phenomenal opportunity.
It's the best episode.
No, not going back into Trump.
Okay.
Thank you. So when it comes to voting and being an abolitionist, can you answer for me? What exactly is voting?
I think voting in our context is, I'm really friendly to the idea that democracy is a bad idea in general. But it's the system that we have. And I think it's Hans Hermann Hoppe talked about how it's like he's very like democracy is a bad idea, like there are better systems, we should decentralize and all this, but it's like a monarchy except for that power has been divested to every citizen. So democracy is like everyone's a 1/7 millionth, or I don't know, numbers, how many seven, however many is in America. We're all that much of a king, right? So
30 million, I believe. Sorry, neither here nor there.
Now I got to look. Now that we're on it, gosh dang. Anyway, keep going.
there's like 7 billion in the world. I got that confused.
Yes, you're doing a great job. Most of them are in China, though.
That's what voting is it's using that power, that the only political power that you actually have on paper towards the end that you want in government. So I'm not against voting or anything like that. In fact, I think as a Baptist, I think voting is essential in many forms. I think members within a Baptist polity have to be able to vote on their elders and things like that. And even in Presbyterian circles, voting plays a function. So I'm not anti-voting, but that's what I think it is. You're using the only political power that you have in this current system.
So ironic.
Yeah.
That
Are y'all Presbyterians?
It's a different episode, Justin. A different episode.
Find me voting in the church in the Bible. Anyway, I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to moving past it. That was, I found the irony that you were like, I don't like voting in our government, but in the church, I'm like, that's the worst stake. No offense.
Well, you vote whenever you're in a van and you need to figure out what to eat. You vote on like what to eat.
Is that the Baptist voting you were talking about? Is it, you vote on pizzas a lot? Do you?
Yeah, you set up a committee, and then the committee comes and they give a report, and then everybody votes on whether to.
They send delegates.
It's a subcommittee of the potluck committee.
All right. This is either here or there, and this is not make fun of voting in a church. I'm not here for that anyway. One of the things
Presbyterians vote in church, right? I mean, like you vote whether or not to leave the denomination or things like that. I mean, there is still voting happening or voting.
Yeah, we a lot of it happens at the Presbyterian level, though.
We don't just so we're clear, we don't baptize infants or babies in our church. We are Baptistic in that sense.
Yeah, you shouldn't dunk babies, and that's what baptismo means. Dunk.
We are getting so far.
Man, this is not about voting. All right,
this is not going.
I do want to ask.
It's my fault. I mentioned voting.
But you did it. You brought it into the church. We do blame you for that.
Okay, all right, fine.
The question I was going to ask was: are we in a democracy?
Well, I mean, it's like the way I see it. We're in a democratic republic. But in a sense, that just means we're in a democracy slowed down. It's like because we're voting for leaders that represent us in a republic. But I think essentially you could even make the argument that the leaders of a country generally will do what the people want them to do eventually. So it's like, say you lived in a monarchy and everyone in the country, all the citizens wanted abortion to be abolished. The monarch, his hand would be forced eventually. So, depending on the mechanics of voting, I still think it comes down to what the people are demanding of the leaders. It's like the mechanics just affect particularities.
I don't want to do the different types of government, so I'm not going to go there. I don't know if that exactly maps out the same, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
I think that there's a pretty big difference between a constitutional republic and a monarchy. But large scale ones that I think we can see throughout time.
But we do have democratic principles built into our systems. Sure,
we have a democratically elected constitutional republic.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yes. And in that, the intention was that the people would be the royalty, that the the citizenship would be the royal class, because they're the ones that are actually dictating the direction of the country in the theory of the democratically elected constitutional republic. That was the goal. So yes.
Yeah, and it was a better system in that only stakeholders had a say. So it was like landowners.
Yes.
Way better system. Yeah.
Yeah, like even if we just like cut it down to taxpayers, like that would be a large step in an interesting direction. But here nor there, I mean, hey, maybe if we democratically elect some different people, we'll have some different things. It's possible.
It's definitely better than you will own nothing and you will be happy.
Yeah.
Which is the way that King Schwab would have it.
The actual monarch, yeah.
So how does that? So when I say something like voting is making a selection between given options, is that kind of what voting is, or is that different than what you're saying voting is?
I think where we have a difference is that I would put a lot of weight behind the power of the no vote. I would say that there's something very powerful about a large group of people saying, no, I'm not going to vote on either of these. And I don't want to misrepresent your position that I don't think you're saying that doesn't matter.
You misrepresented me. I'm right here if I really felt like I was being misrepresented.
You are not talking this podcast.
You're good. You're good. What was the question? So the
different, like I was just saying that voting was a given choice between a choice between given options, and you were saying that you didn't want to misrepresent my position, but you felt you put more weight behind the no vote.
So it's like a choice between it's a choice between these pool of candidates or none, and I think there's immense power behind none of the above, or I'll call NOTA, NOTA. But
it's fun to say.
It is.
NOTA.
And it's fun to say someone got noted. Like if someone fails to get a majority vote and everyone votes, the majority votes none of the above, that person got noted.
I kind of like want to hear the Flavor Flav music behind it, like
no good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Do you but behind that vote, right? So we're casting a vote between given options or none of the above. Do you see, like, as a Christian, do you see any like moral requirements placed upon you from Scripture when you vote, or is it simply just a choice that we're not held responsible for in a moral sense?
Yeah. Well, I think it's whenever the Bible is speaking to legislators or to magistrates, I think those commands lay on us whenever we're voting, because we're the magistrate in that situation. So anything that you see where it's like kiss the son lest you perish in the way, things that are spoken to them apply to us in the voting booth. And I think the requirements are the proverb that says, will you be aligned with wicked rulers? I think that's one clear thing where I think that voting is an alliance. You're allying with the political power that you have with the ruler to install him. I'm forgetting the reference, but it says, will you be allied with wicked rulers, those who frame injustice by statute? I think we can't ally ourselves with wicked rulers who frame injustice by statute. But to a more general sense, I think, maybe in the particularities, this gets meted out differently than it would in a church setting. But I think when you are electing a magistrate, you are electing a deacon. Like Romans 13, he's a servant for your good. The Greek there is the same word for deacon, diakonos. And it's like one of those things where it's, a lot of people would say like, oh, so he's like sort of like a deacon. Like, no, he is a deacon according to Romans 13. But
he's not a deacon, just to be clear.
Right.
We're not saying he's in the same office as that.
Right.
He's just a servant of government.
In that's what the word means. Yeah.
Correct. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I was just clarifying.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to say rigidly that the same qualifications for a deacon, like every elected ruler that you vote for must be, qualified male and all that stuff. I am just saying that whenever you are using the political power that you have to elect someone, you should be treating it as a holy office, which is, a servant of God, a deacon of God, to bear the sword. So those are my requirements.
That was Psalm 94:20, by the way, that you were referencing earlier.
Thank you.
Just for posterity's sake.
Yes, that's correct. I just pulled that up, and since you found it and we're speaking it, I was going to let you say it first because I feel like
the same person.
I just felt like you needed a win. That's all. I just wanted to give you that low.
You were right, by the way, about the population of America. It was
Yes.
like 340 million or something like that.
I said 330, but that's because I haven't adjusted yet to the newest influx from the border. So that's my fault. I do need to.
Right.
Boy, ain't that the truth?
Actually, just to be clear, about just over Joe Biden's presidency, we've grown about 4% in our population just from illegal immigration. I said illegal immigration. Everyone, illegal.
What did you think that people thought you said?
Oh no, I just wanted to make sure that it was caught for posterity. I wasn't trying to
okay.
gild the lily at all. So
Gotcha.
anyway, when we're talking about voting, I think one of the areas that we've come.
I mean,
to
if it's
find out,
illegal immigration, isn't it just kind of like trespassing?
it's more like illegal migration, really. At the end of the day.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Anyway, and this comes from a much longer discussion that we've had already, but I think our big difference in voting, maybe that in voting, it's in my communication of voting making a choice between given options. One of the things that I want to hit the next step on is you brought up Romans 13, which is fantastic. So Romans 13, I'd say I'd go to the passage and I'd open it up and I'd make us all read it. But we spent so much time on that in 2019 and 20 and 21 that I think I know our audience probably is well versed in Romans 13.
No pun intended.
No. Oh,
well versed.
Man.
Well, versed.
This is awful. But in thinking through Romans 13, it's calling us to as far as we can live at peace. And obviously we know that we butt up against things in that because we have Paul.
Isn't that a different passage, or is that actually Romans 13?
No, it's part of Romans 13. It's not the exact verbiage, but we're supposed to live in submission under the ruling authority is the goal of Romans 13. But no, I'm not direct quoting the verse that says, "As far be it with you, live at peace with all men." That wasn't the verse I was quoting.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Nathan knew what was happening.
I was so confused.
Sorry.
I'm like, wait, I don't think that is that in there?
No, but I wasn't trying to directly quote that verse, although those words are in that order. So maybe a more basic question.
You're a poet and you didn't even know it.
Maybe a more basic question is voting something like we use the terms receive, reject, redeem, and a lot just because they work really well because they're all R's and you're supposed to find some consonants at the beginning of words. So in the idea of receiving, rejecting, redeeming. I don't think so. I mean, you mean that
Baptist love alliteration?
Yes. No, you're correct. So in that concept, we take something that is a part of our world, and we analyze whether we receive it or we should reject it, or it should be part of the redemption process. It's
based on biblical principles.
Based on biblical principles. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that which of those, or maybe more than one, would voting fall under that?
Yeah, I think definitely redeem. I think we need to recover the ability of Christians to exercise whatever power they have to the best possible ends. And in this system, you have the power to lobby your legislator and use things like agorism to defy the state where possible for holy ends and things like that. Say they make homeschooling illegal in your state, you can defy the government. That's a political means you have. But on paper, really, voting is all you have. And so until that system changes in some fundamental way, I think we should recover the want to be involved in that process, and reject the idea that Christians shouldn't be involved in the political process, because the state has all these issues that because the state is like doing all these bad things, we should vote, things like that. I don't subscribe to that, but I understand where people are coming from when they do that. But I think it should be redeemed.
Right. So there's a connection point. I think we as Christians can receive the idea of voting, but I understand also that in receiving it, we want to make it better.
Should we change it? Should we change it to reject, receive, or reform?
Well, that's fine. I like that too.
Since you and I are reformed, I don't know if Nathan is or not, but
yeah, let's do that. I'm fine. Can we do that? Do we if we just say it on YouTube? We trademark this. Is that how it works? I declare bankruptcy.
Well, we should reform voting in that it should be households only, landowners. No.
This is a great one.
Yes.
Can we make this another episode where we decide how we can really fix some things? Because I would love to do that. Like, it's just political science is like one of my fun hobbies, but I'd love to do that. Another episode though.
Oh my goodness.
Secession.
Poor Nathan.
Secession.
You know,
Sorry.
We're not doing it. What you did. So if voting isn't necessarily, it's not a reject. So if it's like a receive or redeem, if it's either we can receive it or it's at least redeemable.
Either way, Christians are participating in one of those.
Right.
Fashions.
We're not rejecting it as outright sin or offense to God. Does that mean that we should evaluate voting as a sin issue or as a conscience issue, or is it something else altogether that we evaluate voting?
I think it's a conscience issue in particularities. Like, so we could have a conversation about, can you vote for like a hyper charismatic who is Christian, but he's got these red flags in these areas or something like that. That's a particularity. Or could you vote for a woman? Things like that. I think that's where it's an issue of conscience. But I think there is a realm in which it no longer becomes an issue of conscience. And that's where someone that you're voting for is in blatant sin, like he is a homosexual, or he's supporting child mutilation or child sacrifice or anything along those lines. I would put that in the category of, while I am not going to anathematize you or say like I can't be your brother or work with you or be in a movement with you, I think it, in my mind, and a lot of my friends disagree with me on this, it leaves the issue or the realm of a conscience issue.
So you're saying that in the sense where me as a Christian living in America, who has a political power with the vote that I have,
Mm-hmm.
I place that vote not with someone who could be controversial or could go either way, but with someone who is supporting clear biblically named unrighteousness. You would see that as a bit of a different category than, or maybe perhaps less up for discussion than, say, someone more in a middle ground or something like that.
Right. I think it is a sin to vote for Joe Biden. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're probably all on that boat right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think no matter what issue you take, pretty much you're probably in sin if you vote for Joe Biden. What issue is it that he is moving in a direction that would be righteous on? Is there any issue? Can you even make an argument? Maybe we should find somebody that would have that argument with us. Please, anyone.
He says he loves the poor.
I think it's because he likes to smell them.
He freed Assange.
Oh gosh. And he is, you know what? We are getting back the best people under Biden's presidency. All the best people are coming back to America from their overseas heckholes. Anyway, that's another episode altogether. Man, Nathan, you just want to join the podcast? Do you want to be part of it?
I mean, I'm just doing everything I can to get you distracted off of the topic.
I mean, he got our troops back home from Afghanistan, all except for those 13.
Gosh, Jesse, why would you say why? What in the world?
Because I want the voters to remember, because our news cycles are so freaking fast that people forget that Afghanistan even freaking happened. People fell off of plane wheels hundreds of feet off the ground because of that guy. Anyway,
no, I just don't want to have to read. This isn't the podcast for it, and I could talk about that
I'm
forever.
sorry,
you know how
I
angry
hate
it makes
it.
me.
It makes me angry.
Yes, it's pretty awesome. Pretty awful. Pretty awful. Stuff.
Pretty awesome,
Pretty
you say?
awful. It was a slip of the. It was a Freudian tongue slip. Oh gosh. Pete Buttigieg. I don't know.
It's Freudian. Wow.
I am
Corn Pop was a bad dude. The kids, they'd rub their hand up and down my legs in the pool.
Stick to Trump, buddy. Just say it.
Anyway, what were we talking about?
All right, it's either here or there. We were talking about
Christian
we were talking
moral
about
choices in voting.
was it a sin
Biden's
issue or a
sin.
conscience issue? Just stopped.
And Nathan said that he thinks that there is a point at which it turns from one to the other, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think it comes down to where that point is. You know, I think that's where the entire debate is. It's where that point is.
Yep, that's why I was really trying to ask questions that would just build us up to the idea of talking about the topic.
All I did was provide a recap. Don't get mad at me.
It's like there's just like this grating sound, like nails on a chalkboard. Like you're talking, and all I hear is, it's like I can't get it out of my ears. It's like maybe just try Trump the rest of the episode. Just every comment in Trump.
Dominion voting machines.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay.
So here's my question. You and your friends might disagree on whether or not there's an issue of conscience that goes towards sin in voting. But then do you also have to confront them about their sin? And at what point are you a bad Christian?
I don't know. I mean, that's
confronting your friends on sin.
You know, I think this is an issue where I have been pressing this issue because I think that there's actually a possibility that with the time that we have until the election, we can actually affect change as an evangelical voting bloc. And I'm not going to be prideful and say that I have any effect over the evangelical voting bloc. But I think as Christians, if we were united on the idea of using our no vote to its fullest potential, we could force Trump's hand into supporting abolition. And I know you were building towards that. But I mean, even talking about Julian Assange as an example, I read something from there's a debate between Liz Wolfe at Reason and Angela McArdle, the current chair of the Libertarian Party. She was saying that she was making the case that Biden just freed Assange because of the pressure that the Libertarian Party had just put on Trump. So it's like the Libertarian Party is threatening their no vote towards Trump, and Trump is making concessions towards them because he knows he needs their vote to win. And so he agrees to do all of these things at their national convention, including commuting Ross Ulbricht's. He's someone who made a website where some people traded drugs, and libertarians were big on wanting to free this guy because his sentence was insanely over sentenced. And so the libertarians caused Trump to have to make these concessions in order to win their votes. And in order to get a political win, the Biden administration then frees Julian Assange so that Trump can't use that as another tool to get more votes. So it's like a very small activated minority can very easily use their threat of a no vote, because that's the only power that they have to force someone to do what they want. And
Joe Biden has effectively flipped way more than the 3 million libertarian votes towards Trump. So honestly, I'm not sure, maybe that's a thing, but that sounds like a lot of stretching of what someone wants to be true as opposed to what
I mean, maybe.
Well, but
maybe.
he literally pretty much verbally flipped off the libertarians in front of them live. Like he doesn't. It's not like he was like, "You should vote for me," and they were like, "We're not going to vote for you." And he was like, "You don't really matter anyway." Like that's exactly.
Yeah, but he did answer demands though. He like that was what was happening. Like a bunch of people were yelling at him and stuff. At the same time, he did say, "I will do this, 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 and this." Like that's what he was there to do.
But Trump has always been a transactional human being. Like that's who he is. And
sure.
the things that he says he will do versus the things that he actually does are always very different because he's a very transactional person. And I guess like largely, maybe we'll get to it later, but like largely that's what our political system is designed to be. It's designed to be a transactional system so that nothing gets done. That's the whole essential point of our system.
Right. Yeah.
Ironically, like if we were to really break this down into the sphere of sovereignty, like if the church was actually being like, of all the things that the abolitionist movement really needs to focus on, the church, because the churches that have the churches have lost their ability to actually speak with authority on this. If the church was doing its job, it'd be fine. Because the fact that our government moves so slow means the church can actually bring about change in people's lives, actually cultivate on its hyper local level, right?
Yeah.
The change that needs to happen in people's lives so that they can then affect massive change, right, inside of the political structure by actually having people changed and then voting changed. Because the people will be different, and that's probably like if I was to make it like my argument would be that that's what the church really needs to focus. It's not that we can do the no voting or we can talk back and forth about tactics on this kind of side, but I mean,
now that sounded like an accusation. You're not accusing them of not focusing on.
Oh my gosh, no! Oh my gosh, is that what it's supposed to be? Nathan, did you?
No, I didn't feel that way.
I did not mean.
Yeah, you're getting a little Anabaptist there, man. You're saying we should just be focusing on preaching the gospel.
Anabaptist?
You sounded real.
Is that a nice lady? Is that a nice lady you've met before? I don't know.
Another Baptist.
She's a nice lady. Was she Johnson?
The whole don't be involved in the political process thing. I'm messing with you. I know that's not
a real Owen Strand right now.
Look, stop it. I will say it right here. I am a Christian nationalist. I said it right here.
Wow. All right. Well, there you go. So I want to mention a Christian nationalist. William Wolf. I like William. But he is interesting his take because in my mind, I've said this, that I think if the Christian nationalist movement can't unify to make Trump bend to their will, then it's dead on arrival. That's my take. And it's like they've built this coalition, and I've had friends who are Christian nationalists. I go to church with two people who wrote the statement on Christian nationalism, right? But critiquing the broader movement, they've built a coalition and then they don't actually use it to do anything. You know, it's like we've built this coalition and then we're going to have them vote exactly like they would if they were just watching Sean Hannity. You know,
just to be clear on the Christian national thing, like we've done a whole episode. Actually, we've done like 4 episodes defining it. To be clear, so like Wolf's a very interesting character, but like that's not exact. I'm a much more simplistic view of Christian nationalism. I am a Christian and I want the good of my nation. Before I want the good of other nations, I need to first want the good of my nation. It's literally like the Great Convention we work out, right, for in concentric circles. And so because of that, I think all Christians should be Christian nationalists. And if, in order to desire the best for your nation, you want God's glory for your nation. That's the whole idea. So it's actually not necessarily the whole, I don't necessarily do the whole like Christian magistrate thing. Like I don't go quite that far. Like I actually don't hate the idea of a democratically elected constitutional republic. The problem was it was designed for a people that was religious, overtly religious. And we lost that. Like the church gave the ground up and the government was like, well, okay, so we'll take this over and we'll be God now. Like that's exactly what happened. If we wanted to reclaim it, we can reclaim it. You know, we should.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean,
on what Christian nationalism meant when I said that I'm a Christian nationalist. Our listeners might know exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
That's actually a good critique, Nathan, because
well, if I can finish, because I mentioned William Wolf, so I want to explain why I mentioned him because I don't want it to accidentally get lost there. The reason why I mentioned him is because he used to be according to his Twitter bio and all that, he used to be an advisor for the Trump campaign. And my question is, how? Like, what did he do? If he's a good advisor, he'd be saying, Mr. President, you should do this and it will gain you support. But if you don't do this, you will lose support. What is that losing of support? people not voting for him anymore. And he's representing the evangelical voting bloc to Trump. He's saying, you should do this so that more evangelicals vote for you, or you should not do that because evangelicals will not vote for you. But then on this issue, what I think is the most important issue politically, which is abortion, he would not do that. He would say, okay, hold your nose and vote for Trump. Even though, like, if we all decided that we weren't, I think if an activated minority of the most important voting bloc for Trump, which is evangelical Christians, said publicly, we won't vote for you until you support the abolition of abortion, he'd have to, because we'd be in that advisory role, or we'd be giving the advisors like William Wolf the ammo that they need to say, Mr. President, if you want these people's votes, you need to support the abolition of abortion. So that's why I mentioned William Wolf and the Christian nationalist movement, because I think we've created this coalition, and if we don't use it to that end, then...
Can I ask a question? This is like, now we're way off topic with these questions. So it's fine. I might as well just ask whatever question I want.
Go for it.
Would a abolitionist candidate for president win a election?
Oh, I don't know.
What?
Said I don't know.
I just think it's a fair question. Do you think, given what you know about Pew Research, do you think an abolitionist candidate that said, I will end abortion, would win a national election?
I mean, yeah, I think it's very possible, but I mean,
that's interesting. I was just asking the question.
Maybe so, maybe not. I mean, I'm not trying to think along those terms, because I think you can get in really sinful territory if you think instead of providentially, you're thinking pragmatically in those ways. So I try to guard myself from thinking in those terms.
Well, all right, I'll leave that alone. I think we're kind of thinking providentially. I think we're thinking providentially in a lot of these ways. Like, I mean, so it's fine. I don't know that I wouldn't want to say that a person that's voting for Trump thinks any less providentially than a person that would hold their vote away from Trump is thinking providentially.
Well, maybe I can.
That God can intervene through Trump, as it is that God can intervene through Biden, or things are providential.
Well, could I answer your question in this way? If Trump, if you were asking a question, if Trump decided to support the abolition of abortion, do I think he would win? And I do think he would, yeah. Like, I think if he shot someone on Fifth Avenue, he could win.
Yeah, I guess it's possible. I mean, at this point, maybe possible.
I mean, yeah,
it's pretty. I mean, I don't know if that speaks towards. I think that might speak towards how bad everything's gotten than it does necessarily Trump as a candidate.
I mean, I think one of the things that's important to realize is that, I mean, so take your William Wolf critique, which I think is fair. Mm-hmm. Certainly if I had the presidency ear, I would be trying to feed the presidency ear with as much biblical righteousness as I possibly could.
Just to be fair to William Wolf, like we're extrapolating on what him putting in his Twitter bio actually means. It could have been Trump called him up and asked him a question about, Proverbs 29. He didn't really understand it, right? Like, and he could have, I'm advisor to this, right? Like,
yes, right. No, well, I'm just running with this hypothetical situation here,
which is fine. I think it's a great hypothetical. Let's play it out.
I don't know any, other advisors to the president. So,
you don't know William Wolf.
But I saw him once
from a distance.
I could have touched an advisor to the president.
A lot of people do seem to have that in their Twitter bio, and you're like, man, he had a lot of advisors. What on earth?
No, so if someone's whispering in Trump's ear, telling him what his policies should be in order that the most amount of people would vote for him, I think that current American evangelicalism, which is largely probably nominal Christians, to say like in the best light, is probably largely nominal Christians who don't actually know their Bibles or take church any sort of seriously. I think that Trump's policies would appeal to those voters because they are so biblically illiterate. Mm-hmm. And I think that I'm not trying to say anything really about the voting issue, but I just wanted to say that for our pastors, our church leaders, to really continue to push out into their local communities to disciple people, to disciple their own churches, so that we have more people who call themselves Christians being actually Christians in their thoughts and views on politics, policy, and literally every other area of life. I just wanted to say that. Just a little aside.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Oh, good. Are you done talking? I stopped listening.
Whoa.
Wow.
Of
Haymaker.
all freaking people right now. My bad.
No, what you said
Just ignore
was,
what I said. Just preach whatever you want to
what
preach.
she said was illuminating.
Men, ladies, gays, whatever. I don't care.
what you said was illuminating, and we are all better for what you just said.
It was just a reminder.
Cosign. I co-sign the statement.
What were you?
Okay,
what were
thank
you
you.
reminding us?
That is the South Jersey statement, by the way.
What were you reminding us?
You can be the only dot on the map on our website. I was reminding us to continue to disciple people with the full counsel of the Word of God.
So that
You insulted him for that.
Right? Yes, and I was insulted for that.
I repent right here on air that I said that sarcastic comment to you, Jesse. For that is an excellent admonition. Churches be doing what God's church is supposed to be doing, and stop messing around.
Because Nathan's whole thing, right? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
don't misrepresent him.
I don't think I will. And it's certainly not my goal if I do. But Nathan's whole thing is, if we can get the evangelical voting bloc to say to Trump via whatever communication platform and in whatever way to use the power of our vote to say,
let's find an advisor.
Mr. Trump, I'm an evangelical Christian. I am part of one of the largest voting blocs in this country, especially for you. And I will not vote for you. And me and my church members will not vote for you if you do not change your position on the sacrifice of children of this nation.
Yeah,
I think it's a great idea.
Because that's what Nathan's saying.
Except that evangelicals, like a large portion of them, don't even believe Satan is real. Like, we have a big problem inside the evangelical community.
But that's what Nathan's saying. Nathan's saying we have a problem, and we need to get people to wake up to that. That's the whole point of Abolitionist Rising. It's not to make abolitionists out of pro-lifers. It's to make abolitionists out of pro-choicers.
I thought it was really cool way to make content that totally owned idiots. I thought that was the most cool.
It happens to do that in the process.
That's just a byproduct. Okay, I get it now, because I always see that.
Because that's exactly what Nathan's saying, is if we can change the hearts and minds of this voting bloc to actually say that to Trump,
right,
it might actually do something, because the evangelical voting bloc is much larger than much larger than the, say, libertarian voter bloc.
I think we have. 100%.
Yeah,
no, it's infinitely bigger.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's like if 5 churches in Pennsylvania decided to say that, I think it would be enough to make Trump seriously consider. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's like being a really loud minority. Have y'all heard us talk about the steel ball thing? It's kind of insider baseball, and we don't talk about it publicly that much. But
you can talk about it here. Most people don't see it.
I don't know.
So hundreds of people will hear it.
I was trying to steel ball joke, but I ran out of those. So,
but it's what we're trying to do as abolitionists. So you take a plane of fabric, they do that experiment where they explain how gravity works. They'll put something in the middle.
Yeah, the red shift and all that.
Yeah. So it's like we're trying to be like the center is the truth, and there's all these people in different scenarios, and we just be really heavy right in the middle, all of our weight right there, and we cause everyone, whether they want to or not, they have to fall towards us because of just the weight of our conviction. And that's what we're trying to do. So it's like one of those things where whenever you see all those other dots and you say oh, they're not where we need to be in order to be successful, we're not going to change our actions based on that. We're just going to be as heavy, convictional, as faithful as we can possibly be, and not give anyone any license or permission to compromise in any way whatsoever. And people will inevitably have to come towards us. Or if you want to say it in a more nerdy way, the Captain America thing, it's my job to plant myself as a tree and demand, no, you move, right? That's what we're trying to do. So I think that if you think about things in that lens, it kind of gives you freedom to not worry about what you think is going to happen. whenever you say, but evangelicals aren't where you're at. Like most evangelicals couldn't even tell you how many books are in the Bible, right? Like that's probably true, but that's not my job to change my actions about what I should do in the light of the circumstance. It's that's up to God to fix that issue as we're faithful and we don't compromise. And I think a lot of the state that evangelicalism is in is because the church has been compromising to try and reach them where they're at. You know what I mean? Like as they keep walking away and we keep trying to walk towards them and reach them where we're at, we find that conviction was way over here and faithfulness is way over here, and we just left. You know what I mean?
Yes, we're pulling our weight from the center and following the cultural stragglers instead of holding firm in the center and allowing those to fall towards faithfulness.
Right.
Is what you're saying.
Right.
Which, I mean, I'm really comforted by those words because I am both convictional. I like to think of myself as faithful, and I am also very heavy. So
it's all muscle, right?
Yeah. All the boxes.
If you don't know what's happening on a visual medium right now, then that's because you're listening under an audio, and the thing I'm doing right now is not an audio format. So
it's flipping me off.
That's not. You should definitely check to see the book on the Crab Today podcast YouTube channel. So I'm just gonna. That was awesome. I'm gonna try to get it back to the questions. I love
you
the
and your
picture.
questions. That was a good discussion.
No, it was great.
Okay, good.
I'm literally like trying not to ask a bunch of questions because I just wanted to get somewhere. Like all of these things, like I love.
You don't have to
the
explain to me. You can just keep going.
Okay. All right. How do we balance this? How do we balance scripture written to a theocratic monarchy in our constitutional republic? That was a question I was going to ask.
Yeah.
So you clarify. So to clarify that question, you're saying the Bible was written in this time with these people in this cultural context. We are in this cultural context living under this system of government. How do we apply this to this?
Yes, actually what I I wasn't complaining. I was trying to stay apples to apples. I was trying to compare this specific government to this specific government. So I was talking about the government.
Right.
Obviously they're dramatically different. Like I'm saying that I am highlighting the reality that they are obviously dramatically different governments. So much
so much difference.
I just knew Nathan the Weisser would have an answer for this question, so I asked it. Jeez.
Yeah, I think it's basically the same as I said earlier, is that we should be clear about what voting is, and it's you become the magistrate in a small way, and you have to use that vote in all the ways that the Bible commands magistrates to act. So uncompromising, don't do evil that good may come. Don't ally yourselves with wicked rulers. Don't decree iniquity. Establish justice in the gate. Hate evil, love good. Rescue those being taken. I keep going. Rescue those being taken off to death. Speak up for those who have no voice. All those commands.
Gotcha. So you're saying that us as a voter is essentially a little magistrate.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of the hierarchy of magistrates. And then as that magistrate, as the Constitution would give us that magisterial power, we are to use that as the scripture would describe a magistrate using power for righteousness.
And just can I clarify, would you then say
no clarifying
that the decision
I was just kidding anyway.
The decisions that any elected official makes, the population is responsible for. The electoral is responsible.
No. I mean, like in a sense, like whenever a nation has gone to such depravity, there is a responsibility that the nation has. So I think that abortion is a national sin, and Christians don't get to say it's not my fault. You know what I mean? But that I still leave room for the idea that we could vote for,
someone who then sinned, but it's not our responsibility because they sinned.
Yeah. Like God forbid we could vote for Dusty, and then Dusty, being human, does something really bad, or Dusty Devers, I should say.
Well, I mean, most people should know.
I mean, there's not many really awesome people named Dusty, so
yeah.
There's only one in my book.
Next question.
Yeah, like if he went off and started like a dog fighting ring or something like that, we're like, yo, what the heck?
This was just I don't know if this is like a nerdy
He's
Bible
just ignoring
question.
that. Okay.
Oh, were you saying something? Oh man, I've got to turn on to listen to Jesse. Just touch my leg next time when you do that. No one can see.
They can see.
Oh man.
Nathan's
Now you can't unsee. When we talk about taking a verse from the Psalms, I'm just wondering hermeneutically, should we examine how we are identifying doctrine from that?
Are you speaking of Psalm 94:20 in particular?
Or yes, 94:20 to 23. Yeah, that section that we've been speaking about. I was just curious.
Well, yeah, I'm not hermetic. Like, what do you call a professor of hermeneutics?
Hermaphrodite.
Yeah, I almost said a hermeticist.
No, hermeneutic. Hermeneuticnologist.
Well, Wayne Grudem is my favorite hermaphrodite. But,
Wayne Grudem.
Pray for him.
No, I think I don't know 100%. Like I don't have the best hermeneutical, framework. But I think things that are clear. Whenever it's clear that the wise man does this, you should model yourself after the wise man. Whenever the fool does this, you should not do what the fool does. Or whenever Proverbs or Psalms presents some people as bad, you don't follow the pattern of the bad people. Or there's clear, like whenever King Lemuel is told, rescue those being taken off to death, or any of those things, I think we can take those as commands to ourselves. So
I have a question for you, Justin. Do you think that there are not commands in the Psalms?
Do I think that there are not commands in the Psalms?
Yeah, like, do you think that commands in the Psalms don't exist? I'm just curious.
I do think there are commands in the Psalms.
Okay.
There are actual times in the Psalms where we have the Lord speaking as well, and prophetic. So yes, absolutely. Every category of linguistic tool is utilized inside of the books of poetry. That was not denial of that. I mean, that is not necessarily what's happening in Psalm 94, verse 94. I just want to be clear on that. But I mean, yes, certainly.
Yeah, I think.
But you knew the answer to that question, Jesse. So I don't know why you're saying it.
It's just clarifying. You're like, oh, it's poetry. We can just throw it out.
That's
sing Kumbaya around a fire with it.
I believe the question was, should we examine how we pulled? I clearly couched it in a way out of room.
Okay, then I was thinking of how should we examine how we pull doctrine from poetry, but if it's just should we examine? Yeah, totally. I mean, like what happened in Psalm 91 where Satan talked to Jesus about, or Satan tried to make certain things in Psalm 91 a command or misapplied things and all that. So yeah, I agree with that.
During his detention,
scripture.
You have to be
Just for our listeners, I just want to read this Psalm 94. Is that okay? Just so
to read the whole thing?
No. Just starting at verse 20.
I say so. Read the whole thing.
I'm just going to start at verse 20. It says, "Can a throne of destruction be allied with you, one which forms trouble by statute? They band themselves together against the life of the righteous and condemn the innocent to death. But Yahweh has been my stronghold and my God, the rock of my refuge. He has brought back their iniquity upon them and will destroy them in their evil. Yahweh our God will destroy them."
Yes, God will destroy them. That's what I think we should just. That's why I think we should just wash our hands of this whole discussion. God's going to destroy them. I don't know what the problem is.
Die.
What is the problem? Why are we talking about this? God will destroy them.
I mean, that's what it says. I don't know why you're still talking about it.
I just think a lot of energy on this, and we should just let God get to doing.
I think that's kind of Nathan's point, actually.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to be a what's it called? An accelerationist,
Oh, an accelerant like PCP?
Like someone who would vote for Biden to accelerate the downfall.
Yeah, right. You wouldn't cast a positive vote for the evil, expecting that for God to judge our nation with that evil. You would still expect that as a lesser magistrate or perhaps even the least magistrate, we should still use our voting power to vote for righteousness in any and all senses that we possibly could. Yes, correct.
Right. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Oh, I knew what he was talking about. You got it?
Wow.
I'm just clarifying for our listeners because we are all the frick over the place.
Yes, we are.
What's the next question, Justin?
I don't know. Are you going to make one up? Go ahead.
Oh wait, are we done? Is that all?
Is practical politics transactional or ideological? That's the question I wrote down, but that was just like me thought vomiting out this document. What I was trying to get to is, isn't there a level of understanding our political system as a transactional and not ideological component of our citizenship?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually kind of what I'm talking about, is having it be transactional, because it's like, that's what I'm saying, is that you don't get what you want from me unless you do what I want you to do. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I mean, it is ideological in that your ideology informs how you go about that system or what you are trying to demand. But I think, and I don't think, I'm not sure that this is what you meant whenever you asked this question, but a lot of people will pit those of us who would say risk your vote to see if we can force his hand to do something. They would say, like, we're just too ideologically driven, or we're just in a purity spiral, or we're beautiful losers, or something like that. Pietists. Yeah. And what I would say is, it's like, the question isn't really about ideology versus, you know, pragmatism or being practical or anything like that. I think it's just God's wisdom versus man's wisdom. Like, there's so much in the Bible. I mean, if recently I've just been thinking more about this, I've been seeing it more and more in the Proverbs, and we just uploaded a video that was Zach Deacon. He's a representative in Iowa, where he talked about this, but he's like, you can get in so much hot water whenever you're doing things according to your wisdom. And really what we should be striving to do is just throw away all sort of inhibition and just do what God says, because that is actually the more wise thing. Because whenever we try to practice cunning or we try to practice cleverness, God confounds it. But whenever we're faithful, even whenever man looks at it and says, oh, you're just being ideologically pure or pietist or all these things, you're like, I'm just trying to be faithful, and God is going to reward it. That's so it's like, I'm just using God's wisdom here, even though
kind of
there is something to be said though about being as shrewd as a biblical word, shrewd as serpents, right? Sure. There is something to be said about that. So one of the things that I was actually asking was, I don't know that a person who runs as an abolitionist would find a national election win. Was that I believe it is perfectly within the realm of the possibility that a person avoid speaking about the issue of abortion to be elected and then abolish abortion. Something that I find well into the realm of being shrewd as serpents and wise as doves, or as gentle as doves. Like I find something like that to be very plausible inside of my Christian worldview, and also plausible inside of the pragmatic world that we live in. And what I'm trying to pull on in the reality is our system is actually set up intentionally to be incredibly slow and transactional. That's the nature of our constitutional republic. And that's how it always intended to be. That's why, like you said, like you earlier, reality that each state is supposed to be, it is supposed to be the United States of America. Like, we're supposed to be states that are connected to America, but each state is its own thing. And secession, or I said that right at the time. Did I say that right at the time?
Secession.
I did say it right at the time. Secession. Why am I saying this wrong? Cessationists. We're talking about tongues. No, I'm sorry. We're not. Secession.
A different kind of secession.
Triggers that in my mind. And when I say that, you're absolutely right. Ideology always is a part of all that we do. And when you're a Christian, it is Christ that should be a part of all that you do. And it should never be devoid of that.
Right.
Simultaneously acknowledging that there is a specific system that we are in that is designed to be transactional in nature. Something that I was just trying to understand, because the most transactional human being that has ever existed in the presidency, in my opinion, that's not true. If I go back further, I can think of some other ones. But in our modern, since I could vote, has been Trump. He is just a transactional. He is a transactional person, right?
Yeah.
He is one way, 1 second when he's trying to do what he wants to do, and then flip the switch completely opposite way another second when that's not what was best and what he wanted to have done. Like, it's just absolutely transactional.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said about that in our political structure, because that's one of the ways that I do view voting. And I don't necessarily know that the like, I don't like, again, I think I really do believe that there's an issue of conscience in there. And I don't think I should be informing anyone on that, which is why I was letting you do all that tonight. That was my goal. How do we, is there, I'm just going to skip that because we're like at an hour right now. So moving on to the last question. Good.
Just real quick, I want to answer the shrewd as serpents and innocent as doves thing. I mean, we should be shrewd as serpents and innocent as doves, right? So it's like, whenever a lot of people will use the be shrewd as serpents thing to like excuse decreeing iniquity, for example. And I know you're not using this to say like we should support heartbeat bills, right? But they will use that like, oh, but we got to be wise and shrewd as serpents. But it's like, whenever you're doing something that goes against what God would have you do, you're not being as shrewd as serpents. You're not being as innocent as a dove, right? And I think they would take that as like, they kind of frame us as like not being pragmatic or not being wise or shrewd or anything like that. And it's like, no, the pragmatism that we talk about is like, okay, so I've got California and Indiana, and I'm going to move to one of them for the purposes of trying to abolish abortion. And that's the whole purpose of my move. Am I going to move to California? Am I going to move to Indiana? I'm going to move to Indiana because I'm not stupid, right? That's me being as shrewd as a serpent. And in the context of what Jesus was talking about, he's sending people out to share the good news of his arrival and all these things. I think that's kind of what it was. It's like, use your work in a good way and like put your efforts towards worthy things. Be as shrewd as serpents and as innocent as doves. I don't think that being as shrewd as serpents means we should model after the serpent. We should just be wise in our dealings, but not compromise with our message or our prophetic voice in any way. That's the way I would take it.
Yeah, I was just listening to so you and I and Pops recapped the debate with Russell on the stand, Toby on the Standard, the podcast on the Standard podcast, whatever. I was watching the follow-up interview because they did a follow-up interview with Russell. I don't know if you've watched that, but one of the things that he was saying that made me think of what you're talking about was in terms of in terms of practical wisdom, is that and I don't know if he was talking about Dusty or not. I assumed he was, but he was saying that in Oklahoma, an abolitionist gets elected to the state legislature, and first thing he's going to do is present a bill on abolition, and they essentially change the rules and change all standards of decorum for the assembly so that basically on the very first day of assembly they secretly deliberate and strike down the bill before the public's even really notified about it.
Right.
And what Russell was explaining was, how does one counsel that legislator? And one could counsel that legislator, say, well, just pull the bill. Pull the bill and don't present it until after the public has been adequately informed via conferences and marches and things like that, and then present the bill. Don't let them do wickedness against the righteousness without following wise methodologies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I believe, I think, I think the shrewd part, the innocent part is to connect us to the shrewd part, the wisdom, the craftiness, because we are to be innocent, unlike Satan, but yet the craftiness is the same idea of Genesis 3. The serpent was craftier above all other creatures. Like
Right.
we should be that crafty and innocent. Like that's the connection point that the
Sure.
scripture is trying to make, that Jesus is trying to make as he sent his men out.
Yeah, I think that's what Nathan just agreed.
Okay, we're all agreeing on it. It's fine.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I think even like deception, right? Deception is okay in wartime. You know.
Yeah, I think there are forms of not leaving off unnecessary mentions of reality to people to allow to win a much more effective conversation with them is always allowed. I think that's something Paul demonstrates greatly in his ministry throughout the books of Acts.
Yeah, it's helpful that the Bible like shows examples of people using deception for holy means, you know.
Right. Yeah, like, hey man, I'm Roman. What are you guys doing?
Right.
Or Jesus is
like, I believe in the resurrection. That's why I want trial.
And Jesus is like, poof, now I'm in this city. Ain't catching me today, Pharisees. A Passover. Sorry.
So this has been, I think we talked a lot about a lot of practical things, a lot of things I'd like to talk about more deeply. But
we have talked about so many issues tonight.
Honestly, we have to wrap up this episode at some point. I was worried you were going to do more trial, but I didn't know.
This has been the best podcast opportunity
that's fine.
Over the past 7 days, and I am thankful for it. I love you all. Everyone is beautiful. So, and I just have one more. No, I'm just kidding.
My question involves you, President Trump. So this is where I think the crux comes down to, because I want to know, can a person say they're an abolitionist and still vote for Trump
as he currently is?
Right? I think it's inconsistent with abolitionism, and I think it's really inconsistent. But I'll say it this way: I think there are abolitionists who will vote for Trump, and I don't control who owns an abolitionist card. I don't think Russell controls that either.
Now I'm just disappointed.
What?
Well, who controls the card so we can talk to them? I'm kidding.
If it's not Abolitionist Rising, then who is it, Nathan?
It's just a joke, man.
It's in your name.
It's actually Sam. Sam actually controls the cards.
Well, we know. All right, let's send a message.
Gosh dang it, Sam.
I think there are abolitionists who are abolitionists. They're 5'10" abolitionists, and they're good, principled people. I think they're being inconsistent. I think it's inconsistent with the immediate and uncompromising tenet and the providential tenet of abolitionism. But I don't think anyone is really interested in playing a sort of you're not in anymore because you did this thing that was inconsistent, unless you're talking about like legislation that dehumanizes people or something like that, That's what I'm on that. And I could be wrong, like I could be actually wrong on that, but that's where I am currently.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we ended up kind of getting to in a roundabout way, even after we stopped recording last time. And I thought, like, it's really great to hear all the pieces. So I'm glad you answered all those questions, because I feel like they let people really hear where you are, and then also allowed for the room that is there where it is possible that there may be an abolitionist who votes for Trump, and you're not necessarily saying they can't be an abolitionist anymore.
Yeah,
the things that I don't know if this connects well. One of the things that we discussed last time was the reality that there's something different to be said about fighting for abolitionism, and acknowledging that a bill was made that kills only kills some babies.
Right.
There's a difference between acknowledging that happened because you're pushing for abolitionism and celebrating it as a victory, because it's not a victory.
Right.
That's one of the things that I think is an important way to frame it.
It's a partial birth victory.
Yeah.
Victory's not all the way out. Yeah, that's not good. That's bad.
Yeah.
And so there's a difference.
That's
between,
my term, not yours. You can't take that.
oh,
Okay.
no, it's too late. He has taken it. It is now going to be in the next.
Honestly, if you use that in a video, just tag us. That's all.
It's really just use it and make it your own. The reason I say that is because there's a difference in how you frame it when you really want to understand what we're trying to say about abolitionism. It's like saying, is it better that less people are dying? Yeah, no, it's always better that less people are dying. That doesn't make it righteous. Like that's not a righteous thing.
Right.
And that's really how we should frame the conversation about legislation and understand it that way.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I thought kind of.
Yeah. And I think something we can all three agree on is that if Trump wins, we don't have to, I don't think we have to do this now, but it seems like other people do think we need to do this. We don't have to like defend him anymore. Like it's his last term. We can start saying, hey, like abolish abortion now, abolish abortion every day, abolish abortion. And one thing I fear is that people are just going to keep wanting to defend him, even when it's like, hey, what's the incentive? Like call on him to abolish abortion totally and immediately without exception or compromise. And
which, by the way, isn't how, I don't know. What he needs to say is babies are humans, whether they are conceived or they are outside the womb. They are humans. That's all he has to say, because the Constitution already covers not killing other people. It's already there. It's in black and white.
Yeah.
And once that's stated, then we're good. It's now national. It's now covered nationally in our Constitution. It's a constitutional issue.
Yeah.
Which we already know it is. It's just we're allowing the lies to be the truth. Anyway.
Yeah. One thing that we cannot allow if Trump does get elected is apathy.
Absolutely.
And, it doesn't really matter who's president. Apathy is never the option.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we've been saying for years on the show, is that apathy for Christians is never an option. An apathetic Christian is an oxymoron. So
literally the water that is thrown out, it is the lukewarm water. It is not useful. It is useless. There's just apathy.
It's just a
jug it gone.
Dip spit. That's all it is.
Yep.
Oh, wow, that's vivid imagery.
Oh, so vivid. You can smell it, can't you?
Hey, Carl, is that a cup of coffee?
No, don't do it.
Oh, too late.
Dude, you remember that time you drank bacon grease thinking it was iced tea?
I remember that time.
Oh my God.
I have no regrets. Actually, I had to regret because it was bacon grease.
I have some regrets.
No
regrets. It was the best bacon grease.
It's so bacony. It's so
Wait,
crazy.
can I just ask the closing questions and then you can do the outro?
Sure.
All right. So I have two questions in closing, Nathan. This is where you plug stuff. Okay. First question is, if a Christian was listening to this and they said, you know what, I want to encourage, like, I don't want to be a part of this, two-party system. I want to use my no vote as political leverage for righteousness. What do you think they should do this weekend to actually play that out? It's one thing to think it, it's another thing to do it. So what can they do? Do they contact legislators? Do they email them? Do they call them? What do they do?
Well, I mean, in your local elections, 100% you should be calling your legislators. But you could be, assuming you're a Republican, which you shouldn't assume, but just assuming you're a Republican.
Did you just go to my party?
Actually, I wasn't a Republican until like a couple weeks ago. But you should be going to your precincts and getting involved at the local level. And I think we can all agree the local level is way more important than the federal level. But and I'm preaching to myself here. I need to do this too. But talk to your local legislators. Talk to or get involved in your GOP precincts, your city councils, and stuff like that. But then, yeah, with
GOP precincts. This guy's funny. God, I'm listening.
your New Jersey GOP
precinct.
We are in South Jersey. There's a small glimmer of hope.
That's true. And for our listeners, they are in other places where they actually do have access to that.
That is true. Other people are in better places than we are.
I bet you your counties have GOP precincts.
You
think there's not one?
We turned red a little bit. What was that? 2 elections ago?
They have to be red counties. I mean, if the GOP exists in your state.
Yes, we have them. Yes.
Okay.
They exist. We can lobby them.
It was not. I was just joking
He's
because
just being lazy. He doesn't want to have to find their phone numbers.
I have called my representatives. I have called them. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think there's a big value to being a keyboard warrior whenever it comes to the national conversation. Do some keyboard warrioring, say why you're not going to vote for Trump, and be clear about it. Because I think one of the worst things you could do is be a no vote and not ever put it on record as to why.
Yes, because that's not helpful, right?
Right. So that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, not voting and not telling them, that actually would feel much more along the lines of abdicating. By purposefully taking your no vote and letting people know why, that is using your vote. By not voting, that's just you being just kind of lazy. So don't do that.
Yeah, it's like the scenario I was thinking of, and I didn't bring this up, but like the scenario that I was thinking was like, say you're on a deserted island and you've got 30 people with you and you've created a church, or like y'all have created a church. You don't have an option to go to a different church, but you start electing elders. And I know you guys are like, whoa, you don't elect elders.
You mean God starts appointing elders? Okay. All right. Yeah,
affirm the call of someone's life. Yes. That's
you start affirming. You have elder candidates and you got a woman and hold on. You got 2 people who are highly unqualified. Okay, that's what we'll say. Just 2 highly unqualified people.
We get into trouble on this show. They're both women, and one of them is a hermaphrodite, or something like. I don't know.
Well, that's just confusing.
Well, I'm just saying 2 highly unqualified, like 2 equally unqualified people.
What the high five? That was a callback joke.
That was a callback. That was a good callback joke.
Sorry.
In my mind, that is a very, because you can't just say, oh, I'm going to make my own church, because say you're also unqualified in some significant way. You're a woman. But you would say, I'm not voting for either of these. And you say very clear, I missed that one.
He said it's true for one of us. And then he looked at me and implied he's a woman.
Joke.
You would be loud. You'd say, I'm voting for neither of these, and here's why. And if you didn't do the here's why, you've affected no change. You've just put it in the docket as an absentee or abstention. Yeah. Abstention. Thank you. Yeah.
Yep. Perfect.
And then my second closing question is, this is going to drop on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
If you were going to recommend 2 or 3 things for people to watch or listen to who are just like, oh, this abolitionist stuff sounds cool, and they're like, oh, I want to spend some time checking this out this weekend,
there's definitely some really good documentaries that I think you might be
two or 3 resources, whether that's a book or a video or a podcast. What are the top 3 things you think someone should listen to really just check abolition out?
Yeah. Well, I'm biased, but the documentary that I produced called A Storm Comes Rolling Down the Plain is available on YouTube, so you can just look it up. There is a book that I have not read yet. I'm tentatively recommending if someone wants a book form, called Post-Roe Reformation by Kayla Sitterman. I have not had a chance to read it, so if there's anything terrible in it, I don't endorse it. But Russell helped,
organized
a little bit. So if you're looking for a book, maybe check that one out.
Awesome.
And then just our YouTube channel, Abolitionists Rising. We got a lot of ideological explanatory stuff on there. You could go to the first 5 episodes of the Liberator podcast, which is several years old and kind of legislatively outdated at this point. But as far as the ideology,
it's still there. Yeah.
I have a question. If I'm watching a reel and I see someone that looks like you, but they're wearing really big sunglasses and I can't quite tell if it's you.
Yeah.
Like arsenicoitai to, gay people. Is that you or is that someone else?
Yeah, it's me.
Yeah, that's right. That guy was so biblically ignorant, it's not even funny.
Go to Abolitionist Rising and find, and you even without seeing this, you might be able to identify that this sultry voice of one Nathan Weisser. on Nathan. Why did I say?
I don't know why you said Andrew.
I said Nathan this whole time.
You did.
What's wrong with me?
Ruster T. Huntle.
Ruster Huntelson. Abolitionists upside down. I got nothing. I do want to say this. If you're considering voting for Trump, don't vote for Trump ignorantly, like you think you've elected a savior. Be involved.
Yes.
Be active and involved. Just amongst us three, there's probably differing opinions on how voting will go. None of us are going to be disengaged from the process. We're all going to be active in the process. That's the key. It's very important. Very important. Trump is not Jesus. We will never elect Jesus because the throne already belongs to Jesus. He just comes and takes what's his.
Amen.
He's like the honey badger.
Honey badger don't care.
He just takes what he wants.
Preach. Yeah.
Awesome. This is an awesome time, and I appreciate it. Nathan. I'm so bad. Well, dear Christian, we hope that this has been an enjoyable and informative episode for you, and we hope that you this day will seize the faith.